Well, everyone, I think they actually did it. Blizzard have been farming some wins here. The entire deep dive they did for Midnight, the Q&A, and the Alpha Wave has honestly been kind of incredible. And there's a lot of just top, headline news. Valorstones are being removed. They have got a new thing where unlocking a class set will automatically give you all of the lower difficulties. That's pretty cool. And it's also retroactive for the entire game. And overall, I think they're not really messing around here. They clearly want Midnight to be a resounding victory, and after the rather humongous PR stumble that was Gamescom, I think with this they've actually kind of given it all. They've actually done a good job. And I don't think it's just the deep dive and the Q&A. They also did a round of media interviews plus 43,000 words of patch notes that are actually pretty good. So today, things are real simple. I'm just going to bring you the most important news about Midnight, the really cool tidbits. But before that, we need to talk about Blizzard's fairly swift change in strategy here. That deep dive was exactly what WoW needed. And here's the thing. It was not even a deep dive. Really, it wasn't. It was not going into the nitty-gritty details. It was more of an overview of Midnight, and it was around 30 minutes long. And in a fairly familiar style. Think a dramatic, theatrical reading by some classical English actor. And not just anyone either. It was David Shaughnessy, who is the guy who actually voiced Prophet Velen in Warlords of Draenor, amongst many other characters. And the whole thing felt inspired by the classic intro cutscenes. You know, the ones that would play right after you make your very first character. But somehow even better. It was pretty good. The writing was kind of intense. There was a heavy focus on story, and importantly, a focus on the fantasy. And look, it might be a bit old-fashioned, but I can tell people will be hooked by this style. And one of the things we complain about often is vibes, and the vibes being off. And I think that deep dive had plenty of the right sorts of vibes. And what struck me was something new. The narrator went over some of the Eversong quests, not just by saying what we're going to be doing, but by saying how it actually will feel. And I mean it when I say this, actually, good job, Blizzard. That's engaging with people in the way that people actually engage in art, not just boringly listing out the feature set that an expansion has. I think if anything is going to get players invested in WoW's atmosphere, its world, its lore, it's going to be something like that. It worked in me and a few of the people that I've seen, at least. And if you look at the YouTube comments, I think I'm not alone. There's a lot of people saying it's a massive improvement, that it sounds, quote, so Warcraft. Maybe that's the thing we've been missing for a while. And maybe they had all of this planned all along. Maybe it wasn't a quick response to Gamescom. But either way, I think they struck some gold here. And that's even before I talk about the Q&A, because after 30 minutes of that lovely deep English voice, we got a whole hour of Kaivax asking questions. And you know what? It was really good. It was just the WoW leadership up there doing Q&A. And I would say overall, Blizzard, this is it. This is the blueprint for getting people information in a way where they will actually hear it. So, with all of that glazing done, let's actually talk about the new information that we've learned. Okay, quality of life changes. There are a lot of them, so strap in. Okay, one of them. Patch 11.2.7 is actually bringing back the Brawlers Guild. Yes, the Brawlers Guild, and that's alongside housing. That's all going to be happening on the 2nd of December. And even bigger news, Valorstones are gone. I don't think we're going to weep them. Yeah, no caveat, they're literally just gone. Ian Hazzikostas dropped this rather casually at the end of the Q&A. I think we could all tell he wanted to get that info out. And he even added they're fixing up crests. Now, based on what he said, it sounds like each track of gear will just need the same type of crest. Nice and simple. So right now, to get from Hero 1 to Hero 6, you would need some runed crests and some gilded crests. So perhaps in Midnight, that will change to just be a little bit more linear, a little bit more easier to understand. Say, champion only needing carved, maybe hero only needing runed. Something like that anyway. Now, the second biggest bit of news is that collecting raid sets just got way easier. So in Blizzard's words, quote, fully collecting a class set's appearances now unlocks all lower difficulty variants. So if you do the heroic raid and you get a piece of gear, it will also unlock the appearance of the normal mode piece of gear as well. what's pretty cool is that this change is retroactive to all legacy content. That's certainly good for most cases, however there is a little bit of a change where upgrading a piece of gear will no longer bump up the visuals that it will grant you. So for a lot of people, say in Delves, that side of this change is a little bit disappointing. I have a feeling it'll be a net positive overall, but yeah, it's not universally good for every single player. But overall, because this is retroactive, it means that once pre-patch hits, most of us will log in and have way more options for our transmogs. But as disappointing as that could be, modern Blizzard is quite a bit better at taking on feedback, so maybe if there's enough feedback, they will remove that side of this change. Moving on then, we've got a new place called the Arcantina, and this is essentially the Hearthstone Tavern. It's a minor feature, it's one we didn't know about before, but basically it's designed to give you a break from all of the doom and gloom that's going on in Midnight. Mostly it's a lore and like RP spot, but it's got plenty of quests as well. And in Blizzard's blog post, they revealed 9 rotating groups of visitors. So each group of these visitors will have different conversations with each other about things from the past. Some of these can even lead to quests. And those quests will send you off to explore places and events that those NPCs are talking about. So it could be a good gateway for getting some people into the lore. Okay, next then, let's talk about journeys. If you've been watching our videos, you may have seen this. It's called Plumber. It's an add-on by Peter Yu. It's absolutely amazing, and it adds this really nifty overview page for all of your renowns, and actually more info than just your renowns. I use it personally, it's amazing, and Blizzard seemingly liked it so much they've nicked the idea. So Journeys is a new summary page that shows you all of your renowns, your delves, your prey, and your vault progress in one place. Which does mean, rather shockingly, it's starting to feel like the UI of a modern video game. Well, that's far from all the UI changes. Other things are getting big upgrades as well. One of those is obviously the Cooldown Manager. So now you can save multiple different layouts. Plus, finally, sounds and events are in for each spell. And the new nameplates are also in the alpha. They look pretty great, I would say, and there is a massive amount of customization, more than I think anyone would have expected from Blizzard had this been 5 or definitely 10 years ago. Then there's the personal resource display. Thankfully, this is moving its way over to edit mode, which is a minor thing, but I think it's important for people to get their UIs just the way that they want them. Sadly though, there is one thing we can't test yet, and that is the boss warnings. So this feature is not totally ready in time for the first wave of the alpha. It is in, but Blizzard have warned us that it's currently not done. But Ian did say it outright in the developer Q&A, that add-ons won't be able to read combat information in Midnight. We don't know to what degree that change will be, but the upshot is that Dimensius will be the last boss you'll ever be fighting with a weak aura. But obviously this is... I mean, it could seem like fluff to say that this is a seismic change, or it could be peak, a video title done by me to say, this changes everything. In this case, I think it kind of does, actually. I mean, really clamping down on combat add-ons this hard, but with an actual in-game solution to that problem, is kind of huge. So, with the pre-patch, basically the era of add-ons just dominating World of Warcraft raids, dungeons is just going to be over. Things like, say, Plater and some parts of weak auras may survive for the sake of customization. In the Q&A, Ian was very clear that the, aesthetic part of add-ons he's really a fan of, but it's the combat power and the computational stuff that is basically doing thinking for you. That is, it's going to be dead. The next thing then is professions, and professions are confirmed to be getting a quick revamp, which is certainly good. Thus far, that means we're going down to 2 qualities from 3 qualities, which should help to simplify the whole thing kind of nicely, but we've not seen the full scope of the changes yet. Now, also, actual gear crafting is getting a fix as well, where there will be no more half sparks. I have to imagine that's been confusing to some newer players. Now, the way it works is you just get full sparks, but you'll need 2 of them to craft, which basically is us, it's a different way of getting to the same place, but I think it'll be a little bit more clear. But the huge changes don't end there, because combat is getting a very crazy update as well. Now, for as long as I can remember, WoW has worked the same way. An interrupt locks an enemy mob out for 3 seconds. That's actually now going up to 5. And that means that interrupts will be way stronger against enemies now, and there will be a lot fewer casts going out in dungeons and in raids. That's fairly large. Now, diminishing returns are also being changed drastically as well. So right now in PvE, enemies become immune after 3 stuns. It would take 18 seconds for that to reset, but now Blizzard are basically fixing both, where enemies will never become immune to stuns. Instead, it will just go down to a minuscule stun duration, which, will be weaker, but the enemy will still be stunned for a little bit, and that's got some obvious good implications for, you interrupting an ability by using a stun, as one example. Now, the reset is going down to 16 seconds, and this means that you can lock down enemies a lot more effectively now. Of course, things are a little different over in PvP, where now 2 stuns will make you immune to a third, and that does make CC less effective. And also in PvP, Elite rank is now 2300 rating down from 2400 rating, so that should be a good bit easier to reach. Now, that's all from the official notes, except for the class stuff, which I'll have to get into another day, because my god, there's far too much. There are so many class changes, and even doing a quick summary would mean I'd just be here all day. But I'm still going to be here for a while, because I'm far from done. So next, here's all the important stuff that we picked out from the Q&A and also from all the creator interviews that we could find. Now, one thing we've been waiting in info for is the praise system. We knew it had difficulties and rewards, but what we didn't know is this. When you are chasing a nightmare difficulty target, the entire zone that they're in gets more dangerous. Do you know what that sounds like? That sounds a little bit like Legion Remix's Heroic World tier. So, pretty cool. I'm quite excited for that to be a thing, but sadly, it's not all good news. So we're still not getting class skins. That being said, the question of customization keeps on coming up, and Ian keeps saying that glyphs are the way that they will do that. At least from my read of just hearing Ian, it seems that he really does want them to get more spell customization and stuff into the game from a visual standpoint, but there's nothing hard confirmed just yet. Now, that's not it for the less than good news. The other thing that's not really happened is a big expansion to the Warbound reputations. But to be fair to them, Ian did straight up apologize and take accountability for this. He said they really wanted to get more old reps onto the Warbound system, but basically they fell behind. And he said that whenever Midnight is out, they'll get back in the wagon to get those things sorted out. Hopefully they can find the time for that, but you know what? I get it. Production's hard, shit falls behind. But you know what? As long as there's good communication and, if something does go a little bit screwy and people properly apologize for that and sort of take accountability for it, yeah, I'll totally take that. That's good. That's honest. That's the kind of communication we want. Now, speaking of warbands, we actually got a sort of confirmation, a soft confirmation, and that is of using your own warband characters in follower dungeons. It seems that's something that is eventually going to happen, just not yet. And they say that's because they have loads of technical hurdles to solve. And thankfully in the Q&A, Paul actually said that they got one major technical hurdle out of the way. And that's thanks to the training ground, where basically they rebuilt how they load in bots. And if you're not aware, by the way, the training ground is basically a remake of the Comp Stomp thing that's basically designed as, I think their exact words were, sort of making the base of the pyramid larger for PvP content by just letting more people come in. So basically, whatever they did about those bots should mean that eventually doing, say, follower dungeons with your Warband characters, so with your alts, that should be possible. So maybe that'll happen in the future. But for another change, and one you may like, well, let's talk about delves. Okay, no underwater delves, and no carrying totems or candles, or anything of the sort. They say they've learned what mechanics we like and don't like. That's certainly good to hear, so we won't have to deal with those things again. And Ian also answered a question about legendaries. I wonder if there's, Shadowlands legendary PTSD in both sides of this equation, but he mentioned why we didn't get them in War Within. Basically, it's because they don't want legendaries to become formulaic. Obviously, in Shadowlands, they were formulaic, so you know what? I'll take this as them, actually making progress, understanding what worked, what didn't. Basically, if an item is orange quality, it really has to be earned. It needs a story behind it, instead of just something that everyone will feel forced to grind for. So, That's what they said on that. There are no plans for the first patch, but maybe for later. Now, to end on a good note, here's what we've taken away, I think, from this whole wave. It's pretty simple, and it's that Blizzard do not seem to be growing complacent here. They're dropping housing, and it's fairly goddamn robust. There are sweeping changes across the game, and they're clearly not done. In almost every answer about a game system, they made it quite clear that they want feedback. They want to know what people want from housing in the future, what kinds of UI changes people want to see. It actually seems that they are quite hungry to make the game better. And even if they mess up, it seems that they are sort of there waiting to fix it. Honestly, it was a damn good presentation. What else then, and where are we left with all this? Well, that's all the new important stuff from this very first wave. There's already stacks of posts from Blizzard, sweeping combat changes, there's a huge shift as an example in healing philosophy, there are loads of class reworks coming, and there are loads of words on basically every feature in Midnight. And to me, it's fairly obvious what's going on, that they kind of, took what happened at Gamescom extremely personally. Suffice to say, I know they took that personally. Maybe some of my own words were taken rather personally. So, a few offended people aside, what actually matters to me is the quality of delivery. People can be offended, have feelings, but it's all bullshit, that's all noise. What actually matters is the shit good when it comes out. And I think this was actually good communications. It felt confident, it projected confidence, and in a way that didn't feel like it was overcompensating. So actually, it was some pretty damn smart shit. And compared to some of the more choppy stuff of the past, it does look like they're doing everything in their power to make sure we actually know what is coming. So after this PR beat, and just before the public alpha starts, I think overall there's a vibe in the air, and that vibe is along the lines of Midnight maybe being what World of Warcraft needs. And funnily enough, I'll have a video up very shortly in the channel about some of the inside baseball about why that kind of may actually be the case and why the last two expansions have been, I would say, massively trending in a positive direction, but undoubtedly, a little bit scuffed every now and then, as we've covered in this channel. But right now, well, you can prepare for Midnight. One of the best ways to prepare for Midnight is watching this video, which is the entire story of Xal'atath, from her very beginning in, the planet where the Dominar are, so I guess millions of years ago, basically a time before time. From then, up to the end of the War Within. We've done it in one video, 37 minutes long, so if you want to chill out and enjoy something, and actually get all that story that you need, check that video out next.